If fantasy K-dramas are your comfort zone, your emotional playground, or your favorite way to escape reality while somehow understanding life even better, then this list is absolutely for you. Today we're talking about a top 5 fantasy Korean drama recommendation that blends romance, supernatural twists, emotional healing, and some very uncomfortable but fascinating questions about love, fate, and identity. These aren't just shows you watch and forget. These are the kinds of dramas that sit with you, make you rethink relationships, and sometimes even change how you see yourself. As we go through each one, I really want you to ask yourself, which story would affect you the most? Because I promise, at least one of these will hit closer to home than you expect. Let's start with what might be the most emotionally dangerous drama on this list, Heavenly Ever After. The story follows Lee Hae-suk, portrayed by Kim Hae-ja, who reunites with her husband Go Nak-jun in heaven after death, only to find that he appears as a man in his 30s. Just hearing that premise already feels like it should come with a warning label. This drama doesn't just ask what happens after we die, but what version of ourselves we bring into the afterlife. Kim Hae-ja's casting alone signals that this drama is going to be deeply reflective and emotionally grounded. There's something profoundly moving about a love that continues beyond death, but the twist of her husband being physically younger opens up questions about memory, time, and how love evolves. Is love tied to appearance, or is it tied to shared history? Would you recognize your soulmate if they no longer looked like the person you aged with? Sun Suk-koo adds an interesting layer here because his presence feels modern, calm, and emotionally restrained, which contrasts beautifully with the lifetime of emotions Kim Hae-ja brings. Personally, I find this concept both comforting and heartbreaking. Comforting because it suggests love doesn't end, and heartbreaking because it reminds us that even eternal reunions come with change. While watching something like this, I can't help but wonder, if you met the love of your life again in a completely different form, would your heart still know it's them? Next up is Oh My Ghost Clients, a drama that takes a much lighter tone on the surface, but still carries meaningful messages underneath. Jung Kyung-ho plays No Moo-jin, a labor attorney who can see ghosts, and instead of running away from this ability, he ends up using it to help unresolved spirits alongside his sister-in-law and a video creator. What I really enjoy about this drama is how it combines comedy, action, and social commentary without feeling preachy. Ghosts here aren't just scary figures. They're symbols of injustice, unfinished business, and voices that were ignored while alive. Jung Kyung-ho is particularly good at balancing humor with sincerity, making his character feel human rather than heroic. The drama subtly shines a light on labor issues, exploitation, and power imbalance, which gives the fantasy aspect real-world relevance. I think this kind of storytelling works so well because it entertains while still making you think. You're laughing one moment and then suddenly realizing the story reflects something happening in real life. It made me think about whose voices we choose to hear and whose we ignore until it's too late. If you had the ability to hear the stories of people who were wronged but silenced, would you actually want that responsibility? Or would it become too heavy to carry? Now let's talk about The First Night with the Duke, which honestly feels like it was designed to spark endless debates online. This drama follows an ordinary college student whose soul is transported into a romance novel, where she becomes a minor character named Cha Sun-chaek. Things immediately spiral when she ends up spending the night with the obsessive male lead, Yi Beon. This is one of those fantasy dramas that knows exactly how chaotic it is, and instead of avoiding that, it leans right into it. Seo-hyun does a great job portraying the panic and confusion of someone who suddenly realizes they're inside a fictional world with pre-written rules. Tae-cheon's character, on the other hand, embodies that classic intense male lead energy that's both alluring and terrifying. What I find fascinating here is how the drama plays with the idea of agency. If you're inside a novel, can you actually change the story, or are you just being dragged along by destiny? It also raises questions about romantic tropes we've normalized. Is obsession romantic, or is it just dangerous behavior wrapped in pretty aesthetics? Watching this drama made me laugh, cringe, and occasionally pause to think about why certain tropes still work on us emotionally. I'd really love to know. If you were dropped into a romance novel, would you try to follow the plot to survive, or would you immediately try to break the story completely? Head Over Heels brings us back to something more emotional and tender, focusing on a high school student, Park Song-ae, who lives a double life as a shaman by night. Her goal is to save her first love, Bae Yeon-yu, from his predestined death. This drama feels very youthful, but it doesn't shy away from heavy themes like fate, sacrifice, and the fear of loss. Cho Yi-hyun brings a quiet strength to her role, portraying someone who carries an enormous burden while still trying to live a normal teenage life. What I love most about this drama is how it portrays love not as something glamorous, but as something protective and selfless. The fantasy element of destiny and prophecy makes every moment feel urgent. You're constantly aware that time is running out, which makes even small interactions feel meaningful. It reminds us of how fragile life is, especially when you're young and experiencing love for the first time. Watching this drama made me reflect on the idea of destiny. If you knew someone you loved was fated to die, would you accept it as part of the universe's plan? Or would you risk everything to change it, even if the consequences were unknown? Finally, we have S-Line, arguably the most unsettling drama on this list. Based on a webtoon, this fantasy thriller imagines a world where red lines suddenly appear above people's heads, connecting them to those they've had physical relationships with. Overnight, private history becomes public knowledge. This concept is brilliant and terrifying at the same time. The drama doesn't rely on fantasy for escapism, but instead uses it to expose human vulnerability, shame, and hypocrisy. With only 6 episodes, S-Line is tightly paced and intense, leaving very little room to breathe. Lee Soo-hyuk and Lee Da-hee bring a cold, sharp energy that fits the tone perfectly, while Aaron and Lee Eun-sam add emotional layers to the chaos. What disturbed me most is how realistic the social fallout feels. Relationships crumble, reputations are destroyed, and society quickly turns judgmental. It forces you to confront how much we value privacy and how quickly empathy disappears when secrets are revealed. Watching this drama made me deeply uncomfortable, but in a good way. It made me ask myself, if something like that existed in real life, would society become more honest or just more cruel? What I really love about this top 5 fantasy drama list is how each story uses fantasy not just as a gimmick, but as a lens to explore very real human emotions. From love beyond death and unresolved regrets, to social injustice, destiny, and the cost of truth, these dramas prove that fantasy can sometimes feel more honest than reality. If you had to choose one drama from this list to watch first, which one would it be, and what drew you to it? Do you prefer fantasy that comforts you, challenges you, or completely unsettles you? Let me know in the comments, because your answers always make these recommendations even more interesting. And who knows, your favorite might just become someone else's next emotional journey.